Strange and Scary Mysteries of the Month, September 2017. Strange and Scary Mysteries of the Month is a compilation of the weird, disturbing, and downright baffling stories currently happening in our world. From UFOs and serial killers, to ancient sites, mysterious creatures, and even ghosts, these are the Strange and Scary Mysteries of the Month for September 2017. Number 5. Germany's Worst Post-War Serial Killer. In 2014, Niels Hoegel was found guilty of killing 2 people. The nurse admitted that he had injected them with heart medication, causing an overdose, and that he also tried to kill 2 more. For this, he received 2 life sentences. But prosecutors and authorities alike now fear that this was only the tip of the iceberg, and say he may have killed upwards of 100 people. Niels worked in 2 primary clinics. The first was Oldenburg Hospital from 1999 to 2002. Even though some of his colleagues noticed a relatively high number of people died in his care, no investigation ever occurred. When rumors of his involvement began to make the rounds, he was then transferred to a position in anesthesiology. While in the unit, a doctor told him his help wasn't needed anymore, and noticed how Niels would always attempt to insert himself when patients needed resuscitation. After he quit his job, he was given a recommendation letter with no hint of concern over his work performance. From 2002 to 2005, he took up a new job at Delmenhorst. There he continued with his killings, administering an overdose of heart medication to various patients, leading to a precarious situation where he would then step in and attempt to revive them. It seemed he sought the praise he would get when he was able to bring them back. However, the majority of the patients in his care passed away. It wasn't until 2005 when a senior physician combed through the death records and suspected foul play by Niels. He was then arrested and eventually convicted. He later confessed about some of his previous murders as well. Authorities then exhumed more than 100 bodies to try to determine if they were also drugged and killed by the same nurse. Recently, it's been determined that he killed 90 people, while many others could not be determined because most of the bodies he worked with had been cremated. Number 4. Pregnant woman killed in Satanic ritual. Heavily beaten then burned to a point where only her necklace remained, Fernanda Perena's death is suspected to have been part of a satanic ritual. She was 26 years old and 6 months pregnant at the time of her death. It's believed that she was systematically tortured before being put in a fire so hot it burned nearly every trace of her. The ashes were then found dumped in a wasteland on mile 3 of Route 6, close to the small town of Rincón de los Sauces, which has over 10,000 residents and lies 700 miles southwest of Buenos Aires, Argentina. 3 people were arrested for the murder. This included her ex-boyfriend Luciano and his friends Diego and Osvaldo. When the 3 suspects' homes were raided, authorities discovered various items of satanic paraphernalia. The sheep was also found in one of the homes, significant because of its implications that it may have been used for ritual sacrifice as well. Not only were the suspects linked to Satan worship and other various unidentified African religions, they are also suspected of drug trafficking. Some investigators say her ex-boyfriend may have killed her because she was pregnant with somebody else's child. Still others say her death served as a warning and likely involved drug trafficking. Prior to her death, Fernanda was also involved in a domestic abuse incident where her previous boyfriend, Adamar, beat her brutally while she was at an ATM. In 2016, she also witnessed a crime where a drug trafficker killed a teenage boy. Fernanda received multiple death threats because of the incident, but currently it's not believed her murder had anything to do with the previous cases. Number 3. The Reclusive Emery brothers. For almost 50 years, the Reclusive Emery brothers have lived in the same yellow house in Seattle. They rarely made contact with the outside world, but inside their crumbling home, the 3 of them kept a horrifying secret. 82-year-old Charles Emery, 80-year-old Thomas Emery and their youngest brother Edwin, who was 78, lived inside a house littered from floor to ceiling with magazine clippings of dead children, pornographic materials, handwritten notes detailing crimes committed against young children, and hundreds of letters describing torture, rape, kidnappings, and the murder of young girls. It didn't stop there. Among the stash, police also found various children's toys, underwear, and dozens of little girls' shoes. Inside of those were little vodka bottles, one of which had the initials of a younger relative on it. Other items found included a pink child's hat along with a partially burnt handwritten letter inside a dirt crawlspace. The property was searched with cadaver dogs, but so far no bodies have been found. Another property was also searched, belonging to a fourth Emery sibling who died in 2016, but so far no additional clues have been discovered. When questioned, Edwin and Thomas said they had no knowledge of homicides, but admit it's possible there were killings if what the police officers said was true. While all three of them have a fascination with young girls, it was Charles that owned most of the disturbing items. His brothers referred to it as Charles' hobby. He supposedly worked at Seattle Children's Hospital from the 70s until the 90s, but so far authorities have been unable to link him through hospital records. The incriminating items were found after Charles was moved to an elderly care facility because he was suffering from dementia. A younger relative was tasked to clean the house when she found the various items and reported it to the police. Edwin, meanwhile, was investigated in 2013 for possible possession of pornographic images of children on his computer when he brought it in for repair. According to reports, there were about 20 images of nude children. Edwin also admitted attraction with sub-teenage girls and that he had abused a young girl during his 20s. However, in the end, no charges were brought on. When the brothers were recently arrested, they had no known criminal records. The Emery brothers are currently detained at the Kings County Jail with a bond set at $500,000 for each one. Number 2. Natalee Holloway's body found. On May 30th, 2005, 18-year-old Natalee Holloway was supposed to board her flight home to the United States after a 5-day postgraduate vacation in Aruba. However, she never showed up, and so for the past 12 years, her disappearance still remains unresolved, until now. Natalee's father, Dave Holloway, never gave up hope trying to find answers to his daughter's disappearance. Even though the official case has been closed and Natalee has been declared legally dead, Dave never stopped searching for answers. More recently, he revealed, together with private investigator TJ Ward, that their search has led them to uncover human remains. Samples have been sent for testing, but it's yet to be seen whether it is indeed Natalee's body or somebody else. Dave and TJ went to great lengths to obtain the information. Both were undercover in Aruba for 18 months when they received a tip from Jordan Vandersloot's best friend John. Jordan is the primary suspect in Natalee's disappearance, and he's currently incarcerated for murdering a girl in Peru in 2010. Although Dave and TJ are trying to keep an open mind about the possibility it could not be Natalee's remains, Dave is still hopeful that if it is indeed her, it will bring some sort of closure for him and his family. Natalee was last seen on May 29th at the Carlos and Charlie's restaurant. A tipster named Gabriel says that Vandersloot asked the bartender to give Natalee a drink, which was spiked with the date rape drug GHB. Once the drug took effect, Vandersloot escorted her out of the bar together with his two friends. However, Natalee started throwing up and ended up dying when she choked to death on her vomit. Gabriel then relates that Vandersloot called his father and he helped get rid of the girl's body. First by burying it in a park close to her hotel, and then deciding to dig it up and transfer it as authorities were closing in. The results of the DNA test will take weeks or even months to come through. Natalee's family are hoping for closure, and that the case of her disappearance can finally be put to rest. Number 1. Journalist disappears in submarine. Danish inventor Peter Madsen was once lauded by the media for successfully crowdfunding a working submarine he dubbed as the Nautilus. The Danish hobbyist was praised for having created the world's largest privately funded submarine. Meanwhile, Kim Wall was a 30-year-old journalist declared missing on August 11, 2017. She was last seen boarding Peter's submarine at 7 p.m. as they set sail for the waters between Denmark and Sweden. When Wall hadn't returned later that evening, her boyfriend alerted authorities. They tried to contact the sub, fearing something might have gone wrong on its trial run. It wasn't until 7 hours later when the vessel was finally spotted, and Peter was yelling that he was turning back to port. By 11 a.m., the inventor disappeared into the hold briefly, and the submarine began to sink rapidly. Peter was able to survive the sinking ship and was picked up by a boat and taken to shore. However, there was no signs of Kim. When initially asked about Kim's whereabouts, Peter claimed he had dropped her off on a nearby island around 10:30 p.m. and had no idea what happened to her after that. He also said that a minor problem in the ballast tank turned into a major issue, hence the Nautilus ended up sinking. But authorities were suspicious about his claims, and so he was detained. Investigators retrieved the sunken sub and there were no signs of Wall. 10 days later, a woman's torso was found by the water's edge in Copenhagen. The head, arms, and legs were deliberately removed, and it was hooked to a piece of metal which was done intentionally in order to make it sink. After DNA testing, it was determined that this was in fact journalist Kim Wall's body. Peter then stated that Wall died while inside the sub and that he decided to bury her at sea. The cause of her exact death still remains unknown. Peter is currently under custody, but the case details are kept away from the public and only minimal information is being provided. Every day, strange and scary stories are happening all around the world. These are just a handful, but there's still so much more to discover. If you enjoyed this video, then please support us on Patreon and remember to subscribe to our channel. We have many new scary mysteries coming out every single week that we're sure you'll love. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week.